Hello, my name is Sanaz Hosseini. I'm a graduate student in ICCM lab at FIU in Miami. This is a pre-recorded presentation for the 2020 meeting of the Society for Mathematical Psychology. My work's title is Are Facial Identity and Expression Perceived Independently? A study controlling stimulus and decisional confounds. An important question in cognitive neuroscience is to determine if some of the dimensions of a stimulus are so special that they are processed independently in the brain. In vision, an example is that of facial dimensions, like identity and emotional expression. After a comprehensive review of the literature, we noted a high inconsistency in the conclusions regarding the interactions between facial identity and expression. We wondered why there is such an inconsistency, and we found several problems frequently observed in the literature. First, unclear operational definitions. General recognition theory, or GRT, is an extension of signal detection theory for stimuli with more than one dimension, which formally defines three different forms of independence. Perceptual separability, or PS, is perceiving a dimension in the same way, regardless of the changes in the level of the other dimension. This is represented by equivalent marginal distributions, as the case of identity here. Perceptual independence, or PI, is defined as the absence of a correlation between the perceptions of different dimensions within one stimulus. A stimulus represented by a tilted ellipse indicates a violation of PI. Decisional separability, or DS, is always adopting same decisional strategy for a dimension, regardless of the level of the other dimension, and it is illustrated with a decisional bound orthogonal to the dimension it divides. These forms of independence can interact with one another, and it is important to dissociate them, which is mostly ignored in the literature. Second, uncontrolled decisional factors. Changes in decisional strategies can alter the conclusion of a test. Here, for the same stimulus representation, we have two cases of possible decisional strategies at the left and right panels, and the pattern of responses are different, leading to two completely different conclusions. Third, uncontrolled discriminability. Discriminability of a dimension is equivalent to the distance between the perceptual effects of the stimuli on that dimension. It is important to make the discriminability of expression and identity equal to avoid having a task that is very easy on one dimension, leading to a ceiling effect that suppresses detection of any interferences for that dimension, as shown here. Fourth, different changes in stimuli. Changes in the stimuli across dimensions should be constant. For example, for the expression dimension, it is important to control for the intensity of the expression at different levels of identity, as it can change the discriminability of one stimulus. Fifth, uncontrolled low-level features. The final confound is the lack of control for the low-level features, especially across identities that can reduce the task to a feature detection task. For example, here, the identities can be dissociated by just their hair, rather than any face properties. This experiment was designed to be the first to control for all the previous confounds. Having the maximum stimulus control is not possible with real human faces, especially for features such as skin texture, skin tone, or head shape. Therefore, we generated faces using 3D models based on real identities. The software that we used, called Make Human, makes it possible to create separate identity and expression models. So we can apply the same expression model on any identity model and equate the emotional expression displayed by all the stimuli. To ensure equal discriminability of the dimensions, we ran a pilot study using morphed series of the stimuli from one identity to another, or from neutral to another expression within an identity. Obtained psychometric functions enabled us to choose morphed levels that had the same level of discriminability. We generated two sets of identities for our experiment to ensure the generalizability of the results for all 6 basic emotions, which ended up to 12 independent identification experiments as shown here. We fit the data from each identification experiment to a GRT with individual differences model using maximum likelihood estimation, and tested for PS, PI, and DS using likelihood ratio tests. We observed strong violations of perceptual independence for all stimuli and all expressions. Also, in most experiments, decisional separability for both identity and expression were strongly violated. However, for perceptual separability, consistent results were only obtained for the expressions of anger and happiness. As shown here, for anger, PS holds for both identity and expression. And for happiness, PS holds for the expression, but not for the identity. We noted a consistent pattern of decrease in discriminability of the identities with the expression happy compared to neutral.